SANDF Chief Rudzani Maphwanya has officially been reprimanded for comments that he reportedly made during a recent visit against Israel, showing support for Palestinians. This was during a recent visit to Iran. International Relations Department issuing that rare rebuke in the last 24 hours, saying the department and the Presidency are the only ones responsible for communicating South Africa's policy on international relations. The Department of Defense has echoed that criticism in its own statement. Maphwanya is now expected to meet with his boss, Minister Angie Motshekga, upon his return to South Africa. It comes on the back of the European Union, the EU, basically threatening Iran with sanctions for not engaging in discussions regarding its nuclear program, and the US cancelling military exercises with the SANDF, which was supposed to take place in the Free State. At the last minute, basically. Let's take this further now with security analyst and chairman of the board and head of African Futures and Innovation at the Institute for Security Studies, Dr. Jakkie Cilliers. Good to have you on the program this evening, Doctor. So, Vincent Maphwanya, spokesperson for President Ramaphosa, saying tonight that the president was neither aware nor did he sanction this trip by General Maphwanya to Iran. Is that unusual?
No, not necessarily, although one would have expected that the minister would have been sensitive to the issue, to the timing of the trip. Of course, what has created the problem here very specifically is the pronouncements that the chief of the National Defense Force made while in Iran. There have been a series of engagements with Iran, Venezuela, Russia, and they've all generally been under the radar, except, of course, for the visit by the chief of the army just after the Lady R incident, which created furore at the time. But this comes, it couldn't have come at a worse time for South Africa.
So we've got DIRCO, the International Relations Department, basically saying it wasn't Maphwanya's place to speak on policy. He basically committed South Africa to solidarity with the Iranian position and saying basically they're fighting on one side. I'm paraphrasing, yes. So is that rebuke by the International Relations Department and the support it's received from the military department, the Defense Department, is that enough of a sanction for Maphwanya?
I personally don't think so. I think that if you remember the furore that happened with Emma Powell from the Democratic Alliance and the other people from the DA and elsewhere which have gone to the US, and they are not government officials, and for the chief of the National Defense Force to pronounce so clearly and unequivocally at this time is remarkably politically insensitive. I think that real sanction is required. He should be recalled to South Africa, and I think probably significant action needs to be taken against him.
The DA, I think it was, that said it wants him court-martialed. For us lay people, what would that mean? And would that be a sufficient action?
No, I think that's going a bit far. I think in most other countries, what would happen is he would either be forced to resign or requested to resign.
And given the sensitivities, especially between Washington and Pretoria, do you think the Trump administration will pay much attention to the comments made by General Maphwanya, or do they have bigger fish to fry with South Africa at the moment?
This just adds fuel to the fire. As I said, this could not have come at a worse time. The issue for South Africa, with the US and South Africa, is around Israel, it is around Iran, it is around the case that we brought to the International Court of Justice. It feeds directly into the stereotype that Trump has wherever he gets his news from on South Africa. So this means effectively, I think, that any efforts to try and negotiate the 30% tariffs, I think it would be very, very difficult.
And given where things stand currently, the Iranian officials apparently in local media recommitted, as did the South African team at this meeting that was held, to basically future cooperation between South Africa and Iran. What do they each have to offer one another militarily, Jakkie?
I think they have solidarity, and I think that's largely what they have to offer one another, South-South solidarity. An anti-US, anti-Western storyline, and so on. Iran is a difficult partner to have brought into BRICS, and it has really given a particularly bad aura to the BRICS grouping, which is now very much seen as an anti-Western alliance, whereas what this is for a global South alliance.
So going forward then, how might South Africa, I wonder, have to relook the way in which people who travel on behalf of the government in any capacity, especially when you're not in cabinet, etc., communicate and behave? Does that require or warrant perhaps a relook or a reintroduction to the rules by people like General Maphwanya and others?
You know, there is a very good saying that says policy is not what you say, policy is what you do. And if you look at I've just looked at the travel schedule of the Chief of the Army, the Chief of the National Defence Force, the Chief of the Navy. Their travel orientation and South Africa's military orientation is increasingly shifting to the members of the BRICS alliance. And unfortunately, what has happened, particularly with Russia and Venezuela and, of course, Iran, is that we've been instrumentalized. They use us for their own purposes. And at a time when we are trying to negotiate to save jobs and save our trade relationship, this kind of action, well, it reflects where ANC thinking is and what they really want, what they really desire. But for South Africa as a broad remit, this is really not good time.
Jakkie Cilliers, Dr. Jakkie Cilliers, good to talk to you from the Institute for Security Studies.